First step is to get one of these little proprietary screwdrivers. Mine is a best, it's a 1.2. I honestly don't know what that's even measuring. I just know that 1.2 is for the air, 1.5 is for the star-shaped batteries. A star-shaped battery screw, 0.8 is for the bottom of an iPhone. Because Apple couldn't just use T3 or something that's actually standardized. No, they had to go ahead and use this bullshit. I totally get the argument that these screws are so small that you gotta use something where it won't strip, but first thing I have to do here is take out the motherboard. Because remember, on Apple, nothing is easy. This can't be like no PC where you take out 4 screws and boop, keyboard pops right out. Now this is a T5 screwdriver. See, standard. I don't have to go searching everywhere to buy yet another one of these because they strip every 5 uses. Might get this a little more in view. Notice I unplugged the battery before I started doing anything. You should do that. Sometimes I don't do that, but I know how to fix what I blow up. So unless you do too, unplug the battery. Sometimes there's a screw hidden under the SSD, sometimes there isn't. This one does, so I'm glad I took it out. I don't scrape the board. The screwdriver does not touch the board when I remove the webcam cable like that. Don't scratch anything. They made the fan a flex cable. So what this means is if you rip anything, you can't just solder the fan cable to the motherboard like you used to be able to. You'd have to buy a new connector or be skilled enough in soldering in order to solder a flex cable directly to the motherboard. That's another one of those thank you Apple moments. Gently slid that out. I know there's some people out there that may not believe me, so I'm going to take it out. Okay, now since it's too much of a pain in the ass to remove without 2 hands, I'm going to let go of the tripod, which means it'll immediately go out of view. Stay. That's right. Okay, here we are, you little fuck. Yes, perfect place for a screw. Suck it, Apple. Okay. Back to work. Stop moving. Good tripod. Okay. Got that out. My board wiggles. Smells like vodka. Smells like a fun Friday night. Okay. Also got to take the battery out, don't forget about that. Uses T5 screws, standard. Thank you, Apple. I gotta check on another machine. And back to this. And back to unscrewing all the fucking screws if I want the battery to come out. There we go. This is the longest, second longest, shortest. There we go. Battery. I don't get what people mean when they say the battery's not removable and the new MacBook Air not user removable. What do you mean not user removable? You mean you gotta buy a $2 screwdriver in order to get it out? You know I broke the battery taking it out of the box to put it into a Retina? Seriously, there's 5 little very small flex cables that all go towards this one board in the middle, and some are longer and shorter than others. So if one of these battery packets, which by the way is not held together in a nice plastic frame, falls, it ruins the cable. And that battery is something, it cost me something like 80. This is very user removable. So these speakers are just stuck down with this adhesive, regular, nothing special. Zing, slowly pry away, and yeah. So on this machine, unlike the older ones, or the regular ones, the keyboard plugs into the trackpad, and the trackpad then plugs into the computer. You may remember the original Air where the keyboard and the trackpad plugged into some middle board that then plugged into the computer. Well, you may not remember the original Air because you've programmed yourself to forget it since it's such a miserable machine to work on. That's what I like. Okay. Board is out. You don't have to take the heatsink off. I'm not replacing the thermal paste because this machine is, again, it really has not, it's not dirty, it's not nasty, you know, why waste time? So, this is the back. And this cable, again, goes from the trackpad to the machine. So the keyboard connects to the trackpad, and the trackpad connects to the computer. I cannot tell you how many fucking times I've lost this thing and had to search the entire store for this when it was actually sitting right on the old backlight. So, take this out and put it aside along with your screws and everything else, and remember where it is so you don't lose it like me. You don't want to be a dumbass like I am. So this is a keyboard cable. You can just go zing, and I'm good. So not so fast because we have to get this old backlight off. I do plan on using this thing since it is good. I'm gonna be honest with you. You can rip the fuck out of this backlight and it'll still work perfectly fine, and it'll look perfectly fine too. It will never be noticeable. But for the sake of the video, I am gonna try to not rip it at all. Even though, again, you can get away with ripping it. As long as you don't rip straight right through the LEDs, you're fine. So if you have ripped a little bit, don't go, oh, I broke it, I'm screwed. No, you're really not. Just don't rip this. Don't rip. You'll see where it's, you know, it's a little indented. That's where the LEDs are, and that's, ripping that is just a bad thing to do. Because then you have to buy another one. There are so many tools I could be using that are better than a flathead for this. Tons. They're probably even within reach. Like, let's see this thing. Let's see. You know what? I'm just gonna rip this a little bit. I don't care. I'm not in public office. If I'm ever famous enough that people actually refer back to me ripping a portion of a MacBook Air keyboard backlight in a YouTube video I did in my early 20s, I'll probably be rich enough that I just won't care. So, okay, let's. Oh yeah, I ripped a little bit of it there. I think part of it has to do with the fact that I know I can get away with ripping it, because the first times that I did this I didn't rip it, because I thought that if I ripped it, you know, my life would be over. So. What matters is aligning it when you put it back in the computer. You can have a brand new backlight if you don't align it properly, because if you don't align it properly, you'll only see light right in the middle of the keyboard, and that's very bad. But sometimes it is. And if you do wind up ripping some of this, don't cringe, don't go, life is over. It really isn't. Just no removing it. Oh, I'm not going to lose no sleep over that. Again, trust me, it's just not going to make much of a difference. If any difference at all. Remember, aligning it right is what's important. Time for me to check on the other job again. Back to work. So, there are all these little black screws around the keyboard. You have to take those out. I'm sorry, sir. We don't have anything for those, so I wouldn't be able to help you. You could try a place on 97 Christie Street, though. 97 Christie Street, called JM Wireless. Oh no, that's the end. They attach the keyboard to the case. There's nothing I can do. Fuck. I guess I gotta end this thing, cut this thing short. Or, this is my favorite part of the day, I swear to God. Legally destroying an Apple product and getting paid for it is very cathartic for me. Fuck you. Fuck you. You have to be important that you didn't leave any screws in at this point. Now, this is very, very important. It's going to separate you, the professional, from the fuckwit undercutting you on Craigslist. These are held in by these little rivets. Now, let me see if I have any here. Now, sometimes portions of the rivet get stuck behind. And when that happens, it's not going to sit in perfectly even. It's not going to sit in right. And when that happens, you're going to see the keys are depressed. Let's see if I have an example here that I can zoom in on. I sincerely doubt that I will. Yeah, you see how there's like a little notch sticking up, 12 o'clock? But yeah, you got to get rid of all those. Every single notch. So where's that flathead that I've been destroying? Okay. Just do something like this. this came off pretty clean. I'm happy with this. Also, those little rivet screw things are going to be sitting on the screen. You'll want to do something like this and just open the computer, shake it on your floor a little bit. Usually I like to clean these after a spill, but this vodka being high in alcohol content actually did a good job of cleaning this computer. There's just about nothing in between here that requires cleaning, so none of that. But when you're up at this point, you should take alcohol on a Q-tip and do something like this around every key. It'll let it sit in better. If you spill Coca-Cola, anything syrupy on it, now let me get a keyboard for this thing. If you're like me and you have your keyboards all in the same box, you can tell the 11-inch from the 13-inch Air keyboard apart because this top row of buttons is thicker on the 13-inch Air. Okay. Now while you're putting it in, look for where any of these rivets may not be fitting in properly. Look really carefully. Now, I use my black original screws to go on the inside because there are holes here where the keyboard is going to screw in. That's what the black original screws are for, because they're better than the ones that you can buy off eBay. So obviously, since most of this was held in by rivets, and now there's nothing there, I'm going to be using screws to hold that in. For that, I'm using the outside screws. So what am I going to use for outside screws? Well, you are going to have to buy screws along with your keyboard. So if you're watching this right now and all you did was buy the keyboard without buying keyboard screws, task go, do not finish fixing your computer, head on to eBay right now, even though I hate eBay, and spend $5 on a bag of MacBook Air screws. It's the same for the 11-inch and the 13-inch, and usually they include way more in the bag than you actually need, which is cool because it gives you the freedom to lose all these screws as you go. It's a nice thing on Apple's part. I'm not really comfortable with the low amount of screws that you need on some of these models. I like the idea of being able to secure the keyboard in there a little better, but I live with it. 1 minute, customers. I hate how the shittiest things happen to the nicest people. It kills me inside, it really does. I love the ability to lose screws. I don't like losing them, but I love when I have a spare of it and it's right there, so I don't have to care. But they're not as, they don't have the ridges like this one does. After watching this, you're probably running to the part, which is like 100 or 150 bucks, where you buy the entire top case instead of replacing the individual keyboard. I hear you. I don't blame you. I think I would do the same thing if, you know, that wasn't my profit margin, but would totally do the same thing. And again, my personal computer is this. Not only is this a keyboard that's much better, not only is this keyboard spill resistant, but I can also replace it in under 20 seconds, which is more than I can say for this. One of the things I like to do is always make it somebody else's problem when somebody's presenting me with a problem that I don't really feel responsible for. So when I give somebody the price for this job, and they go, "Why is it so expensive?" I always make sure to turn it back on them and go, "Why did you buy an Apple? Buy a computer where I can replace the keyboard in 20 seconds, and you'll be amazed how much cheaper it is." Oh, I love when people come in and go, "I replaced the keyboard on my Inspiron, and it was so easy, and the keyboard was $15. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Well, the Air isn't that much different from the Inspiron. We're just expensive because it's New York. And then they buy the keyboard, and then they go to do it. And they come back and go, "Why didn't you tell me it was so much harder?" Oh, I thought you meant a different computer. Oh, sorry, dude. You have to have something to think about while you're doing this. Something to ponder over. Anything that interrupts you from the complete and utter mind-numbingness of taking 150 or whatever small screws out and replacing them with different ones. Because this is just not fun. You should look at your keyboard, you know, make sure it don't look like shit. Make sure the keys are nice and even. I'm not even going to try to show you the fact that the keys are even on this with this tripod. That's just a complete and utter fucking waste. How are you?
Hey there.
What can I do for you?
My MacBook Air doesn't turn on at all for some reason.
Let's take a look.
What's that?
Hey, I will fix this specific issue for 50 bucks. Now, if that doesn't fix your problem, it's still 50 bucks. Want to go ahead with your diagnosis? I actually did that a couple of times. Nobody was stupid enough to go ahead with it. So, I just hit my head on the camera while I was insulting stupidity. That's a good one. All right, so I'm gonna put this little flex cable in here. This is the best. I think this is like one of the funniest things Apple has done, like putting this lever here and this flex over here. Anyway, so plugged in, and let's put the backlight on next. Want to line this thing up properly. Remember what I said. On the Air, it's actually easy to line up because they have these points that stick out. I think they were tired of people misaligning the backlights on the A1286 and A1278 models of yore, that they decided to make it easy. Just a little bit easier so that people would stop fucking it up. I appreciate that. Thank you, Apple. That's very, very Christian of you. So, and put a little line of adhesive back on the speaker since I ripped it off last time. You don't have to take the old adhesive off of the speaker unless you have OCD like I do and just can't stand knowing that you're using used adhesive. Certified pre-owned adhesive. It's good stuff though. Very, very good stuff. I buy many rolls. I go through a lot of them. I use them to hold up everything from the autographs in the front of the store to, I guess, the autographs in the front of the store. Yeah. Here, little motherboard. Go into the computer, little motherboard. Oh, come on. Be a good motherboard. Oh, that's right. I'm a dumbass who put the speaker in before the motherboard. Laugh, laugh, laugh. Yeah. Man, it doesn't matter how many times you do this. If you're an idiot like me, you'll do something silly each time. Make clearance from the Wi-Fi wire. Clear the Wi-Fi wire out of the way because you need that space to screw in that little hidden screw that I zoomed in on before. Remember that stupid little screw that I showed you before? It's hiding under everything. This screw reminds me of that screw that they introduced in the iPhone 4 for Verizon, where it was in the upper left corner right next to the battery and it was hidden under a little piece of black tape. So the only fucking way that you would ever know that that screw is there is if you already broke the phone by breaking the motherboard, by taking it out, not knowing that that screw was hiding there, waiting for you. This little rubber thing here as well, you, honestly, if you lose it or can't figure out how to misalign it, it's not the end of the world. I hate this little rubber thing personally. My birds are having a conversation, you hear that? You hear that? I love T5 screws. You never have to worry about stripping them. It's almost impossible to strip a T5 or a T6. But if you do, you can use a T7 screwdriver, which you may have not even heard of until now, because the T7 screwdriver will get out a T6 if you stripped it. It's my secret weapon against idiocy. Stuff like this little wire, realigning this properly is completely worth the time to do. Don't let it get jammed and shit, because these things are really easy to rip. You're ensured a quicker path to heaven, I'm sure, if you align the wires properly. They say that character is not what a man does when he is being watched, is what he does when he's not being watched. And that's how I feel about properly aligning the wires inside of a laptop. Because most of the time you can misalign them, and it will still work. This is coming from the same guy who was totally okay ripping pieces of the backlight. If you have backlight issues on your MacBook Air, no backlight, Or this funny issue when you plug it in and you have no backlight, but you unplug it and it has backlight, or vice versa. This cable is often to blame. Toshiba SSD. There was this Toshiba SSD I was copying stuff off of. It was earlier today. It was one of these using the Caddy. 119 megabyte per second read to my array. Are you kidding me? It was a small SSD. It was the 64 gig, but still. It came out of a 2012 machine. In 2012, you're selling a computer for $1,000 with an SSD. Foul. That's what I'm interested in. Not some benchmarks that some website does. I'm interested in how it actually works when I need it to work. I plug in the cheapest Samsung SSD. Cheapest. About 249 megabytes per second. Right out the gate. Dude, with rescuing an image to my RAID array. But Toshiba? 109. And then you have those Toshiba 512 gig SSDs that were all on sale during Black Friday. Those actually get higher transfer rates than the Samsung, but they randomly stutter and freeze sometimes for no reason. Like right after Black Friday, a good Toshiba SSD, wondering why their computer was so slow. Why it was freezing randomly. It's freezing randomly because the person who bought this for you bought you a piece of shit. I'm sorry, sir. Guess your brother-in-law doesn't like you as much as you thought. Okay. Now I'm doing something that you should never do, especially if you have luck like mine. What I'm about to do this cover is making me humble. Uh-huh. This rubber piece is making me humble. Correction. If something's not going in, you can push a couple of times to kind of feel out where it is. But if it's not going in, don't actually slam the fuck out of it to get it to go in. Because that's where things break. Things don't break when people make mistakes. People make mistakes all the time. Doesn't matter how many times you've done this, you're going to make mistakes. When things break is when you make a mistake and go, no, fuck that. I'm going to keep going. No, it's supposed to go in. I'm going to keep going. No, don't push if shit's not going in, right? I pushed a little more just to see where it was. I noticed it wasn't going in right. I looked again. I saw what it was. I could have fucked something up terribly if I just wanted to jam it in there as hard as I could. But that's not the kind of person I am. Patience is everything. To keep a level head. That's why I laugh when I see these people that get angry over everything on forums, or there was this one person, oh man, on fucking eTech Parts Facebook page. He was like bitching on and on and on and on and on about this shipping thing. I forget, and then like 3 hours later, he's like, "Why hasn't anybody responded to me?" And I made some posts like, chillax, if there's a blizzard, it's been 3 hours, they're probably covered in snow. The company might have something more to do than responding to your little inquiry on Facebook. Like, and I put a bunch of little smileys. The guy gets back to me like, fuck you, douche, why don't you mind your own fucking business, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Totally unnecessary. But you see, if you can't handle that shit, then what the fuck are you gonna do when this little piece gets stuck? Are you gonna be patient with it? Or are you gonna go, oh, fuck you, and break it? That's why it's important to be calm, relaxed, own yourself, own what you're doing. Now, if you're like me, you probably lack the patience to figure out if this thing works going into the OS. My awesome keyboard job works, so I held down Apple S as soon as I turned the computer on, which boots me into single user mode. There are a lot of cool things you can do in single user mode, but above all, I can see that all the keys in the keyboard work without waiting to boot it into the OS. Because those couple of seconds right after you fix something you want to know that it works, that kills you, kills me inside. I'm going to clean it off a little bit, and we're done. So, good luck with yours. Yeah, remember what... Piece of shit, Wi-Fi. Remember what I said about plugging it in? Remember what I said about not testing it before I plugged it in? Yeah, that jackass forgot to plug the fucking fan in. I knew that was a little too quiet even for a MacBook Air. Now I'm happy.